now. And I just want to say to everybody who has joined us tonight, a massive welcome to the Skills Surgery, where we'll be joined by our leading industry experts within the field, along with members of the InvestIN team, to really break down those essential skills needed to break into a career in medical science. So just for a little bit of insights, my name is Emily Sheardown. I am one of our student experience managers here at InvestIN. We also have Amy, Chloe, and Ben working behind the scenes to make this event happen. Now, I know I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier if anybody was joining right from the start, but I'm blown away by how many of you have joined us tonight. I can actually see thousands of parents have joined us from across the globe. Now, just a little bit of insights into what this webinar is. So this is obviously the Skills Surgery, and this is part of our Success Beyond School series, where we'll be holding free, regular webinars for parents throughout this year based on your exact feedback. So please do complete the short poll at the end. Now, some of you I know will be familiar with who we are at InvestIN, but for those who are less familiar with who we were founded in 2012 with the main aim of bridging the gap between school and industry. Now, we provide immersive career experiences of a student's dream career before they've even gone into university. Now, we're proud to say that we've got around 20 career areas, from investment banking, medicine, of course, all the way into, film and artists, so that students can start to make an informed decision about their future while they're still at school. Now, we create these experiences led by top professionals, and you'll meet some of those today, so that young people can find out what a career is actually like, meet professionals in those industries, and receive career coaching on how to really break into the most highly competitive professions. Now, there are some key areas that we cover on our career experience programs. Skills, the key attributes sought after by top employers and where to develop them. And skills is actually going to be the main focus of our event today. Now, a little bit else, we have networking. In a world where only 40% of jobs are advertised, it's not what you know, but who those connections are. Experience is compulsory no matter what career you go into, but it's really difficult to find. Advantage, learning the science of recruitment and how to stand out in a crowd of other applicants. And finally, knowledge, what you need to know and how to talk about it. Now, we worked with over 45,000 students from over 90 plus countries. And we're proud to say, as you can see on the screen right now, that we have a Trustpilot score of 4.9 out of 5. To us, it's so important that as many students as possible can start to think about their careers in an exciting and accessible way as soon as possible. Now, to just give you a true insight into what our programs are, we've inserted a little video here. So I'm just going to go ahead and play that now. Amazing. So hopefully you got a little bit of a flavor now, and we'll of course be diving a little bit into what our programs explain later on. Now, before we jump into what we'll be going through tonight, One important and essential element of our programs is experience. So that is exactly what we're going to be doing right now. We'll be using slido.com, which you can see on screen here throughout the event. Here, you can submit questions for our live Q&A that will be starting around 7:30, and you can take part in our live polls. In addition to this, we'll be taking questions directly from you. Now, to ask a question, you simply need to raise your hand within Zoom itself. So what I'd love for us to do right now is to test this feature. So if everybody can go to the participants tab and click the raise hands feature. We want to see all of those hands raised up. Amazing. I think we've seen everybody. It's amazing to see everybody reacting live. And I think, Chloe, if we pop those down now, we can have those down. And we'll, of course, like I said, be using that feature throughout the Q&A section. Now, for tonight, we're going to launch our first poll to see if everyone can go to slido.com and enter the code skills surgery, as we can see on the screen here. So that's skill and then surgery. And Chloe, if we can launch our first poll, what we'd love to know is where you guys are joining us from today. So like I said, please go to slido.com and you can go on the web or alternatively on a phone. It's completely up to you. I can see those results flying in now. Amazing. And let's show the results now. Wow. Amazing. So we've clearly got a lot of parents joining us from London live tonight, Birmingham, Manchester, Kent, UAE as well, York. That is truly incredible to see. We really believe in the global aspect of our program. So amazing to see that so many of you are joining us from across the globe tonight. Perfect. If we can close that now. Amazing. Thanks, Chloe. Now, let's dive into why we're here this evening. Now, during the pandemic, there has been a sharp interest in careers linked to both healthcare and science. So using UniFrog Careers Library, and UniFrog is a great resource to use. Between March and November of last year, careers profiles linked to these areas were favorited over 80,000 times by students in the years 11 to 13. Now, this rise in interest makes the competition for top jobs even more fierce. There are currently 23,000 applicants for around 10,000 medical places, and applications are only set to increase. Now, there's been an acceleration in the use of technology in medicine. The UK government created a £140 million fund for AI technologies to support the NHS, and a record $8.4 billion venture capital money was poured into digital health startups in Q3 of 2020. The rise in technology and AI throughout the industry has emphasized the importance of skill development in young people. Now, in addition to this, as you can see on the screen here, 70% of students in year 13 report finding it more difficult to develop skills that might be useful in their career as a direct result of the pandemic. Now, in particular, what I want to focus on is traditionally those skills that are more reliant on in-person interactions, especially things like teamwork and leadership. Now, with this in mind, it's important to identify the steps that we can be taking right now to support our children's next steps in their career in medical science. So that brings us on to the timetable for tonight. Now, in just a few moments, I'm going to be passing on to Dr. Manik Kohli. Now, he is currently an academic clinical fellow at University College London and works in sexual health and HIV medicine. He is also our program director of the Young Doctor program, which is actually one of our most popular programs. So Manik will be identifying some key skills that are needed to break into the industry and how you can support your child's development of these right now. Now, before I hand over, I just want to introduce who our panelists will be, who will be joining us at the end of this session at around 7:30. As you can see, so they'll be answering your questions from dentistry, veterinary science, and medicine. So please do put your questions through on Slido at the Q&A. So I can see Manik's up here on screen, so I'm going to hand over to Manik. Manik, over to you.
Thank you so much, Emily, and hello to absolutely everyone who has joined this evening. I'm absolutely astounded at how many people are on the webinar this evening, and I really hope that some of the insights that I share from my own experience as a doctor, and also having run programs with InvestIN Education for many, many years now, about kind of how each of your children can actually excel and stand out in the application process, because skills is often one of the things that they're really looking for, the people who've got the skills already. So as previously identified, careers in healthcare and medical sciences have been a pandemic growth point, as Emily just said. And actually just today, the Medical Schools Council in the UK published its application data for this year, and a record applications for a medical school this year. It was a nearly 21% increase in applications compared to last year. And I suspect that actually the pandemic has really highlighted medicine or healthcare jobs as being kind of obviously interesting, at the forefront of what people are thinking about right now, and actually also very secure, safe jobs in a world that for the next few years, where actually there will be some uncertainty about what will happen. So one question we're going to ask for all of you guys, because we're not just going to focus on medicine, we're going to talk a bit about other health careers, vet medicine and dentistry. So a question for you guys to get things going is, what is medical science? So what is a medical science? And you head over to Slido again, and the code is, the code is skill surgery. So when you go to Slido, you can see on the screen now the code skill surgery to join. Okay, so lots of answers coming through, which I think people can start to see on the screen. So obviously most people, biggest group identifying kind of medicine and studying medicine to be a doctor as being one of the most obviously things that we associated with medical sciences, but also some of the other careers, dentistry on there as well, veterinary medicine as well, the focus, but also kind of people who working behind the scenes as medical scientists and people who work in other people in healthcare, nursing staff, physiotherapy staff, pharmacy staff. There are lots of other associated kind of medical science careers that are very, very important as well. But absolutely right. What we're focusing on are the three: medicine, dentistry, and vet medicine today. Okay, so if we just close down the Slido again and move on to the next slide. So these were the top search roles for within medical science that people often are thinking about, okay? And much of what I will say will be UK focused and looking at where everyone is joining from. Absolutely, most people were joining from the UK, but there were some people from other parts of the world. And some of the things that we talk about the kind of routes through university and into the career might be slightly different in other parts of the world, particularly North America. But certainly the core tenets about the application process and the skills that people are looking for are absolutely universal, no matter where you are. And when asked about what is medical sciences, people often think about physicians and surgeons, so both kind of doctors in a traditional sense, dentists, absolutely, those working in veterinary science, veterinary medicine as well. Pharmacists high up on that list, and also pathologists, and particularly pathologists kind of moving that study really within medicine and medical school, okay? And thinking about kind of what the next few years could potentially look like for any of your children applying to medical school in particular. So at the stage after school, medical school will be 5 or 6 years in the UK. And after that, when you graduate as a doctor, you start working in the UK. There are 2 years that people do as a foundation program for 2 years, and then everyone goes on to divide up into their various specialties that they want to go into. So whether they want to be a surgeon, whether you want to be a pathologist, a GP, a psychiatrist, whatever it may be. So that career is actually really thinking about it. When you're applying at medical school, you're applying into a degree, but actually the careers at the end of it can vary massively. And that's something that we always try and encourage students to keep an open mind about. Whereas in something like dentistry, it's a bit more focused in terms of the vocation you're going into at the start. Obviously within dentistry, there are other routes that people take into specialisms within dentistry as well. But again, in the UK, dentistry being a 5-year degree, and then people having to do 2 years of postgraduate dental training as well in the UK. So again, these are long degrees that people are setting themselves up to. And actually, really, they're competitive to get into. And we want to make sure that for you, for your children, for anyone thinking about these careers, that they're making the right choice for them. Because once you're on this path, it is long. So if we just click through this slide, we've talked a bit about the rapid growth already and automation and things like that already. And we'll come back to some of those things that are changing in medicine. But today we're really focusing on skills, okay? And here on the slide, what you can see is an excerpt of kind of identifying what the kind of skills that someone applying to this was for dental school, they were looking for, okay? So this was available, publicly available information. And we're looking at key things that we've highlighted there. So concentration, building relationships, communication and interpersonal skills, thinking about the welfare of others in a sympathetic manner. And probably I would classify that as empathy and having and displaying empathy. We're looking at admin and managerial abilities as well. So these are absolutely key things that people are looking for when they're screening personal statements or at an interview to get into dental school in this particular. And actually for medicine, it is really very similar. If we move on to the next slide. So again, this is an example. This is from UCL Medical School in London. And again, this is what they've put on their own website about the kinds of things that they're looking for, the candidates that they're looking for, the skills and qualities in these candidates. Okay, so the ability to reflect on their experiences, evidence of independent learning skills, motivation to study medicine, and appropriate attitude, and teamworking, leadership, communication skills, some of the typical things that we always think about. But also they put in there other interests that broaden the education of the candidate. Okay, so I think it's really key to understand before even going through the application process, what are actually the medical schools, the dental schools, the veterinary schools, the universities en masse, what are they actually looking for in a successful candidate? Okay, move on to the next slide. So here actually on this screen, you identified key skills employers look for in healthcare and medical science careers. And it's set out in this diagram above, looking at, we can see a real shift in the skills that students have been recording during the pandemic. So in 2019, you can see the skills enterprise looking at the different skills that people have been utilizing, the shift from 2019 into 2020. And obviously 2020 garnered mostly through pandemic and lockdown. Okay, and on a positive note, you can see that independence in 2020 becoming a prominent skill. Things like teamwork, leadership, actually kind of becoming less prominent as being reported that people are using or are identifying. Okay, and there are many skills that you might traditionally associated with in-person learning, in-person working, in-person activities that you would do. And as Emily said earlier, 70% of students in the last year of their school report finding it more difficult to develop the skills that might be useful for their career. And I think from my own experience on these programs, students are very, very good at typically identifying leadership, teamwork, and communication skills within what they already do, and potentially struggle with some of the other ones. So actually, independent learning and providing evidence of that can be quite tricky for them sometimes when you ask them to give an example. Thinking about confidence in public speaking, and you can see presenting on this chart actually really from 2019 to 2020, people feeling that they're getting less opportunity to utilize that skill, or they are utilizing that skill less in their daily working and daily studying. So confidence in public speaking, I think, not on here, but tech and IT skills as well. So actually people not thinking that actually what they're doing beyond just the typical activities can be really valuable and really important to demonstrate as part of your application. Alongside that, I think languages as well, another very good example of skills that people don't typically think of actually, well, I'm applying to medicine, why are my language skills so important? And actually, candidates can use that to an advantage if they speak other languages to say actually, because medicine, healthcare, the National Health Service, every day I have to speak to people who actually English is not their first language, and actually we have to use interpreters, but often we find that if there is someone who's able to speak that person's language, that can be hugely a beneficial skill to have, and actually is not that common in the UK that people do. So another thing I want to point out is that only 50% felt that skills that they were using during lockdown were valued by employers, and this was again in that survey. And that is probably a perception issue, because I'm sure, and I say this all the time on programs, that absolutely there are skills that these students are using every day, they're demonstrating every single day with whatever they're doing, but actually they don't necessarily have the ability to identify the skill, to be able to discuss it and present it to somebody else, and then to link that to why they would be very good at being a doctor or being a dentist or being a vet. And I often find that when you ask young people where they could develop these skills further, or where they're already utilizing the skill, they do draw a blank. And I think in reality, these skills are absolutely there, as I've said, they're already doing it. And in this pandemic, we've got to change part of the perception, because actually in-person skills have been more difficult to develop as we can see here from people's perception. But I don't think that's necessarily true. And we have to also move away from the traditional paradigm that, it's just the sports, the music, and kind of the fixed activities that people do at school. And that is all that really matters when you're writing your personal statement and trying to demonstrate the skills. And actually, we're going to have to work a bit harder to kind of think laterally about what we can put in there if actually some of the things that we would typically be doing haven't been possible. Next slide, please. So another statistic for you. So 92% of employers say soft skills are more important than traditional skills. And I can say this wholeheartedly as a doctor for many, many years. This is absolutely true in medicine and in healthcare. And here we've just listed 5, I think, are really important ones. So integrity, being able to work under pressure, showing commitment and reliability, empathy, as we've already kind of mentioned before, and prioritization. Okay, and it can often be easier to find evidence of skills like leadership and communication from typical things that students are doing. But with technological development in health and medical sciences and rapidly changing patient needs, young people have to be able to adapt and enhance their skill set and demonstrate those skills. Because actually the in-person soft skills, the skills that actually are very much people focused in a way, these are the skills that actually can't be taken away by a robot and can't be automated out. So if we just move on to the next slide. I think the well-rounded applicant is a really important thing to think about as well. And this is something that we want to focus on quite a lot with students, is a personal statement when people are asking you about what your hobbies are, interests, what you do out of school. It's not just a list of interests and activities. And actually what you need to try and do is demonstrate the skills and attributes, some of which we've already mentioned, and we go through this with students, And actually what they're looking for is people, how they cope under stress, how they deal with stress, how they can avoid burning out. And actually, you know, in medicine in particular, that is something that at medical school and in a career working as a doctor is an issue that actually we're trying to address from the start. So actually finding well-rounded candidates actually is not just about saying, okay, you've got all the skills, but actually, are you someone who outside the job will be able to de-stress, will be able to have other interests, so that actually when you come to work, you'll be able to be the best that you can be at your job. And balancing studying, work and everything else, actually being able to just demonstrate that you can do that is very, very important. And how people write and talk about their interests, and actually when I read personal statements, when I do interview practice with students, and including on our programs, that's the thing that I think we always really have to work on with them, is lots of them are very good at saying, oh, this is what I do. This is, you know, this is the skill or the attribute I think that I've been able to develop through this. But what they then really miss actually is the next step, which is linking that to their future career. So this is something that I want to develop further as a doctor. This is a skill that is very important as a doctor. And I think that last little bit is often really, really difficult and important to understand for them. And amongst all of this, people are looking for someone with a realistic understanding of the career, because there are lots of fantastic things about working as a doctor, as a dentist, as a vet. But I will tell you, as someone who, although my main focus is HIV medicine, actually for the last year I've done mostly working in COVID work, and I can tell you that there have been some really challenging days, and actually what they want is people to understand what the career really looks like. And if we think back to the skills that were on those slides, so integrity, working under pressure, I think, you know, just give me a few examples. So working under pressure, you know, anything someone does competitively, whether it's a sport typically, or whether it's chess, whether it's debating, I think linking that to the ability to work under pressure when you've got critically unwell patients, and you have to then demonstrate leadership by helping lead a team of people actually in a timely manner to help this patient in that particular moment, because actually without that help they could become worse, and potentially it's a life-threatening illness that they're suffering. You know, if we talk about integrity, you know, for example, thinking about, you know, if someone's involved in student politics, linking the importance of integrity and maintaining trust, that is something you learn in that, and actually patients and families have to be able to trust doctors. And these are the things that actually people sometimes don't even think about as an example. Integrity, okay, that's actually something that I have developed and shown. One of my favorite things that a student said in an interview at Medical School was about one of their interests, and actually they worked as a drag performer. And the thing that they stressed was actually it gave them confidence, and it helped them develop their public speaking. And they linked that to why communication is important as a doctor. As a doctor, you have to get involved in public speaking, whether you're teaching, whether you're presenting at a conference. And they were able to develop that through working as a drag performer in their spare time. Unique example, absolutely. But the core tenets were there. And the key thing was linking it back to a career in medicine. If we move on to the next slide, please. So where to start? So the first step that we always encourage students to do is writing a diary of their experiences. So whether it is a hobby you have, whether it's knitting, crochet, whether it's running, whether it's something you do in your spare time, volunteering, whether it's a group activity, a sport, a musical instrument, anything, thinking about them, making that list, thinking about all the skills and attributes, qualities that they demonstrate throughout using all of those activities that they do. And then starting to link that to things that doctors do. And obviously, in whether it's another program, dentistry, vet medicine, thinking about the skills that they use. Often there is a huge overlap in the kinds of skills that actually the people who are interviewing are looking for. And absolutely, this is a key thing to do from an early point. Move on to the next slide. So, and why? So here's just a few more examples. I've already given some examples as I've been speaking. To coding class, so someone involved in coding, talking about time management, prioritization, talking about communication and modern communication. And actually something that I think, something that I had never anticipated, but with the kind of technological advances and the use of technology embedding further and further into medicine and the rise of digital health, actually, there are many doctors who have to spend a lot of time really starting to understand how the platforms that we use in hospitals work, to then be able to make sure that they work best for our patients. And actually having a relatively good understanding of IT skills, which the next generation of doctors will absolutely have, is a real asset for them. Running, so something, you enjoy running, you're demonstrating that you're an independent person, your resilience, actually, if you're doing that, even if it's not necessarily at a competitive level, and dedication. You can show lots of things just by actually being someone who enjoys running. And volunteering, volunteering is a very good example of things where you can demonstrate actually your commitment to other people, which I think is something that they're always looking for, empathy. And depending on the type of volunteering you may be doing, whether it's working under pressure, whether it's having to be a reliable person, showing up every single shift that you're volunteering for, whether it's working in a team and being able to communicate with other people. I think an example from recently that a student I was talking about was leadership and volunteering, and they would had volunteered to help deliver food parcels during lockdown, and this was actually the first lockdown, and a student had got involved in this, and actually they were needing more people to volunteer. So this student said, oh, actually I've got loads of friends, loads of my classmates, so essentially organized a whole load of their friends and classmates to also volunteer and to pick up shifts to volunteer to help deliver food parcels to people who were shielding or isolating during the pandemic. And something really simple, something you can have done in lockdown, something that demonstrates empathy, something that demonstrates leadership, something that demonstrates organization skills, commitment, reliability. And for me, if I was listening to that answer, I would think this is the person is just demonstrating, displaying integrity in this whole process. And actually, that was volunteering to deliver food parcels. It doesn't necessarily, it's nothing that's particularly, absolutely related to medicine or related to being in a hospital or a GP practice, but still really, really important. Next slide. So this is just something called the STAR approach, which some parents you may have heard of, may have come across if you interview or have interviewed or prep for interviewing. It's something that we go through with students when we talk about interview practice, and we do interview prep for them about how you think about something that you have done, an experience that you have gained, and how you then actually make sure that when you give an answer to a question, and a question might be really simple, like what do you like to do in your spare time? Or tell me about something you do outside school. And actually you use this STAR approach, and actually what you do is you demonstrate to this interviewer that you know exactly what you are doing, you know exactly that you want to get into medicine, and this is what doctors do, I have all the skills, and actually this is the right thing for me, and they will be impressed. And we go through this quite a lot in terms of practicing with students. So next slide. So future ready now. Okay, so if we just bring up the text. So as I already alluded to, one of the things that we always want to encourage students to do is a diary. And I think actually something to take away from this evening for you is to start that now. Thinking about activities, interests, no matter how big or how small, and thinking about, okay, what are the skills, what are the attributes, what are some of the things that doctors do and use every day, and actually start to link that together with things that they do and things that they're interested in. And it doesn't matter what it is, as long as they're passionate about it. And that passion really stands out in an interview. I can absolutely tell you that from experience, that actually when people are passionate about what they're talking about, it absolutely resonates, as opposed to just being something they were doing because they thought it was what they needed to be doing. And a perfect example was a student saying that actually they worked as a drag performer in their spare time, and absolutely you could see that passion. So thinking about some of what does your child enjoy about these? What are the skills that can be identified? And thinking about some of the softer skills that we mentioned, and some of the ones beyond just leadership, team working and communication. Practice the STAR approach. If you actually are doing interview practice, then that's what we always want to do when we do interview practice with students, is making sure they utilize the STAR approach and that final R, which is reflect, and tying it back to a career in medicine. And being creative about the skills and the attributes and the qualities and what they might have demonstrated for something, because it might not seem obvious at the start that actually this is what they are demonstrating by doing this activity, but absolutely it's in there. And so many times students fall down because they are absolutely fantastic in terms of telling you what they do. They maybe link it to one or two skills that they utilize, but kind of maybe the obvious ones. And then they don't think about tying it back to why they would be suited to a career, therefore, in medicine. And so actually getting that right is really important, from getting from a good answer to an outstanding answer. Okay, so if we just move on to the next slide. So I think this is just pointing out about some of the things that we do in our summer internships, and I will hand back over to Emily to.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Manik, for those incredible and essential insights into the skills needed to break into medical science. I know that those key takeaways there that you've got on the last slide will be exceptionally useful for cultivating a child's journey into those industries. And for those asking as well, we will absolutely be sending the slides to you guys, as well as the recording, so you can watch Manik again, go through those details. So thank you, Manik. We are actually holding another event live next Wednesday at the exact same time, The Power of Networks, where we'll be joined by Heather White, the founder of Smarter Networking, who has now worked with over 30,000 people from across the world. So if you're interested in joining us again, please do join us. Just before we jump into the Q&A, I'm going to look into exactly what Manik said there, is a little bit of insight into our programs. So for those of you who are looking for the ultimate once-in-a-lifetime kind of experience for your child, this summer we will be having internship in the careers that you can see on screen, and I'll particularly focus on the ones to do with medical science that you are here up today. So we've got medicine, veterinary science, as well as dentistry as well, along with the other careers. These experiences are up to 10 days in length, with the option of accommodation in University College London halls of residence. We will hold 2 separate streams of internships for you to choose from, so 12 to 14 and 15 to 18, and of course the content will be catered towards that age range. So your child will have the opportunity to work alongside professionals like Manik and the other professionals who'll be joining on the panel. You'll be able to shadow doctors in a hospital, stitch up wounds, and manage client relationships. As Manik has mentioned, that's a really crucial part of medicine, that communication element, and experience emergency dentistry as well. So for anyone who is wondering how COVID fits into this, that this is the world that we're living in currently at the moment, we were able to run our summer internships last summer with incredible feedback. You can see it on the screen. We're so proud to say that we got a 9.2 out of 10 by our students. And we're pretty confident that our internships this year will go ahead as planned due to that, with, of course, that strict social distancing measures in place. That being said, the places are highly limited and they are filling up fast. We are also running 2-day work experience programs in medicine, dentistry, veterinary science, along with plenty of other experiences, as I mentioned, filmmaking, artistry, all of those. So if you have any questions about our programs or the topics that we've spoken about today, we would love to answer those for you. So please do email us, and we will have our contact details at the end of the slides, and a member of the team will get back to you. So without further ado, if I move on to the next slide here, I'd love to invite our panelists onto the stage. So we're now going to dive into our Q&A. So if you have any questions that you'd like to submit, please do go ahead on slido.com, as we've been using throughout today. So Becky, Charlotte and Tanya, I'd love to invite you up. And if you could all introduce yourselves, that would be great. So let's see who pops up first, and then we'll come to you. Tanya, I can see you joining us from space. So let's go to you first. Tanya, I'd love to hear about who you are for us.
Thanks, Emily, and thank you, Manik, for that, for your amazing lecture. So as it says on the slide, I'm a fifth-year medical student at King's College London. I was at Imperial last academic year because I chose to do something called an intercalated degree, and that was in reproductive and developmental sciences. And I've been working with InvestIN for just over a year now as a university advisor.
Thanks, Tanya. And Becky, I can see you next on my screen, so we'll come over to you.
Hi, so yeah, I'm a vet. I graduated 3 years ago from the Royal Vet College. Since then, I've been working in small animal practice in central London. Internal medicine is kind of my interest and my passion, but also kind of tutoring through InvestIN I've been doing for a few months, and really enjoyed the Young Vet programme.
Amazing, thanks Becky. And Charlotte, will come to you last for an introduction. Oh, I think you're just on mute, so let me just unmute you now. Perfect, you're all good.
Hi, I'm Charlotte, and I am a general dentist. I graduated in 2012 from the University of Leeds, and then I did my master's at the Eastman Dental Institute, part of UCL, in 2019. And I work in central London and in Bedfordshire, and I work in Luton Hospital as one of the oral surgeons as well. And I helped pioneer and I ran the Young Dentist program with InvestIN.
Amazing, thanks Charlotte. So it's clear to see we've got some amazing expertise here, and the questions, panelists, you'll be pleased to know, have been coming in thick and fast. So we'll go for our first one now. So this one is based on technology. So Becky, I'll come to you first. So how best can students use technology during this time as an opportunity to thrive, rather than seeing it as a challenge?
So I'd say certainly it provides a lot of opportunity to kind of do further research. There is so much online, even more so recently. I would also say it's worth noting that they can actually get work experience remotely and online. This definitely applies to veterinary. I imagine it applies to medicine and dentistry too. So you can really make the most of that. And yeah, you know, basically just embracing the remote learning. I think it's probably going to be here for a while. And again, sort of integrating into all the different medical professions. We're using telemedicine a lot now. So even just getting used to kind of the video call situation is probably going to be quite relevant to your careers.
Amazing, thanks for those insights, Becky. And Tanya, I can see you nodding along, so I'd love to come to you as well. What do you think about using technology as an opportunity here?
Yeah, I think I second everything Becky said. There's definitely a lot of great opportunities out there, just one Google search away from finding sort of online work experience. So there's a number of things that we recommend on our programs. Starting with, you know, looking at the Royal Colleges of, say, GP and other Royal Colleges that want to give sort of outreach opportunities to prospective medical students. There's also like a number of books and sort of like documentaries that are coming out about COVID in particular and how that's impacted on the NHS. And these are the sorts of things that I would say that students can definitely use to grow their interest and sort of develop that realistic understanding of medicine currently.
That's some really great insights there, Tanya. Thank you so much. We'll move over to the next question now before we go live to our audience, and we'll ask them for a raise of hands. So the next one is, how can students really differentiate themselves from other applicants? Charlotte, I'd love to come to you for this one.
I do think that, and I'll say this, I said this all in our InvestIN programs, and I'm actually just finished last week interviewing for the University of Leeds for their dentists and their dental hygiene therapy students. And it is really, really hard because everybody is excellent. Everybody has all the volunteering opportunities. It's hard now because of work experience. It was difficult to get last year and it's difficult to get now, which we fully accept when we were interviewing, that not everybody's had the same access, if any access. But I think the candidates that stood out to me when interviewing were the ones that were really genuine, the ones that had a passion for it rather than something they felt that they had to do. And even as everyone said before, if you have a hobby that's a little bit different, you don't have to have the tick box hobbies. You don't have to be, so with dentistry, we're looking at dexterity. So we have lots of candidates that are very good at art, very good at making things. But if your hobby is cooking or making something that's a little bit different, something a bit more crafty, or a board game or fixing things, that's great because you're still passionate about it and then you can just relate it to dentistry. It's about being ideally kind of widely read as possible. So we're not expecting people to be qualified dentists, doctors, vets and know all the materials and all the material science, but read the dental press that's designed for the wider audience so you know the kind of stuff that's going on. But I think it's about working out what you love and then relating it to the chosen field, because then it will be easier for you to talk about. You'll be more passionate and you'll be more confident about talking about it as well.
Amazing. What a great answer there from Charlotte. And almost sums up what Manik, you were speaking about with passion and really demonstrating that through other avenues. It's not necessarily the traditional things. So Manik, I'm going to ask if you have anything else to add to that.
Absolutely not. I think I completely agree with everything Charlotte just said, and it's so obvious that when people are passionate about what they're talking about in an interview setting, and actually for me the candidates that would stand out are the ones who are able to identify the skills and attributes and what they developed from whatever it was that they enjoy doing, and then tying that into their career. And like I said before, that bit that people sometimes kind of miss out on is kind of tying that back to why they're sitting in front of you, why that would make them a good doctor, a good dentist, or a good vet, actually, because they're demonstrating to you why they would, but can they make that link themselves?
Thanks, Manik. And I guess now it would be really great so we can go live to our audience. So Chloe, I know that you're on tech, supporting on Zoom now. Can we have a hands up from our parents and we'll invite you guys to speak? So do we have a hands up, Chloe? Yeah, amazing. Perfect. So you should have the option to unmute yourself now. Amazing. If you're able to unmute yourself, please do let us know what your name is and where you're joining us from today, and then we'll kick into your question. If not, we can move on to the next person. Let's move on, Chloe. No problem. It's always one of those tech things. So what we'll do is we'll move on to another question, but we'll absolutely be coming back to the audience. So my question now, and this is particularly for veterinary science. So the question is, how can my 12-year-old kind of daughter get into veterinary starting from now? So what are the next areas? And Becky, I can see you've unmuted yourself there. So I'll throw it over to you.
Well, I'd say first off that sort of deciding that you want to be a vet age 12 automatically just gives such a head start. I do always say kind of the earlier you start preparation, the better. That said, you know, if you decide age 17 you want to be a vet, you can still absolutely do it, but kind of it just gives you more time. So it gives you time to organize work experience, time to kind of develop all these key, you know, all these key skills and that Manik was talking about. So I'd say in terms of what you can do to really give yourself a head start, definitely work experience. It does look really good if you have nice broad work experience, particularly for veterinary medicine. It is, I would say, more focused on the work experience side than medicine and dentistry potentially, but it is important for all of us. I'd say, staying on top of your studies, obviously grades are quite a key part as well. And yeah, just, developing as a person as well, making sure that, being a vet is the right career for you. And yeah, just, basically kind of enjoying every aspect of your studies up until the point where you apply.
Amazing. Thanks, Becky. And I think, it would be really great to discuss this in dentistry as well. So Charlotte, let's pop on over to you and see what you have to say about, a student starting at 12. How can they really express their interest and explore dentistry?
So I always think with when people start very young, and often people say that they started to be a dentist when they had dental experience themselves. So I would say get involved in your own treatment. So you're 12 years old, it's fantastic that you're interested. You might be going through regular checkups. So ask your dentist questions, know what a checkup includes, how much it costs, what materials they use. And then you'll know when you go to the dentist, oh, they're using the mirror, oh, they're using the probe, they're using the air, they might take an x-ray. If you're undergoing brace treatment, orthodontics, know a little bit more about that. So you don't have to go into loads of detail, but you'll find it really interesting if you learn about what you're having done or what your brother or sister, friends or family are having done, and start small and then go from there. Look, work experience is fantastic. I wouldn't say that we often have ever been approached for a 12-year-old, and I really appreciate, and I can see on the panel, the questions on the side, everybody's asking about work experience. And so I'll say from the University of Leeds, when I was interviewing last week, we fully understand that people haven't had work experience. And it's just one of the challenges. What really impressed us are the students that went above and beyond. So I had quite a few phone calls with people that were applying and interviewing, and we'll do as much as we can. We can't take anybody on in the practice at the moment, but speak to your local dentist, your childhood dentist, doctor, vet, and have a Zoom conversation. And I can take little mini videos. I can give people virtual tours of my practice. I can discuss my daily routine. I can answer their specific questions, and I can do everything I can. I just can't have them in the building, and I can give them links to really good YouTube videos to watch. I mean, it's not quite the same, but ultimately I think also dental work experience in particular is quite hard because I've got to have the student a certain distance away. I can't have them quite close up to me. So there's a limit to what you can see. But there are often work experiences in dental hospitals, which are fantastic. So it's worth contacting your local dental hospital, and they often do more hands-on sessions. This was obviously pre-COVID, but we hope it's something that's coming back. And then you can see a variety. You can see general dentistry, surgery, root canals, children's dentistry, things that sometimes are a little bit more bloody and gory, exciting, different, which everybody loves to talk about. But I would say, think about what's relevant to you at 12 and what kind of questions you would ask, and then just literally make a list of things that interest you and go from there. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, what a really detailed answer there, Charlotte. Absolutely. Really kind of taking inspiration from the world around you and what experiences you're experiencing right now and how you can link that to the career. Manik, that's absolutely what you were talking about within your presentation as well. So super cool. And I guess just from an investing perspective as well, should you really want to get a flavor for what students will really be experiencing in the career, a day in the life, we do have this on our programs. So during dentistry, veterinary, and medicine as well. So if you are interested in that, you can certainly look on our website as well as message the team, and a member would love to get back to you on that. Now, we're getting a lot of questions on subjects, A-level, stuff like that. And I know that we do cover this in detail in our programs. So I know that you guys will be incredibly well versed on this. But I wonder if you guys could give some insights into this. So Tanya, I'd love to come to you on this and see what GCSEs or what A-levels do you really look for within medicine?
So I think in terms of GCSEs, there isn't like a set list of certain GCSEs that, you know, will increase your chances of getting into medicine. It really varies. It depends on your school, how many GCSEs they offer you. Obviously, if you're in the UK, then most schools will have the core sort of double science. I think they still call it double science. And some students can choose to take triple science. If that's still the case, you know, I did my GCSEs a while back now, so it might have changed. And then maths and English. And I think it's more about the grades that you get at GCSE, which are particularly sort of specific to different medical schools. So some medical schools look at GCSEs, some don't as much. So I would just say, depending on what your child's strengths are, to apply based on that. On the sort of topic of A-levels, chemistry is by far the most sought after sort of A-level to do for any medical application, and most medical schools in the UK will look for chemistry A-level. The sort of second and third A levels, I think most medical schools leave it up to you, but biology and another science like physics or maths, you know, if you class that as a science, might also look good, and it would supplement your chemistry knowledge. But ultimately, I would say that before applying, definitely look at the medical school website, because they change year on year, and you don't want to be applying to somewhere and then not having the grades for it or not meeting the criteria. But on top of that, I would say that really apply to your, like, I just want to emphasize the point that do apply to your strengths, because certain medical schools will look more for certain grades. Some will look for will emphasize entrance exams more than others. So that's something that I would sit down with your children or child, whoever is applying, and have a good sort of strategic game plan before applying.
Thanks, Tanya. That was really great to hear those insights. And as well, just a couple on that as well. I know that universities also look for those other ones. I know, Manik, to link you again with your presentation, is languages you mentioned as something that is often, kind of missed or I think the emphasis is on science and things like that, but absolutely languages is a good one. I can see you've unmuted yourself, so I'll hand over, Manik.
If I may, yeah, this is a question that I get asked so many times, and there's never really one answer, because there are the requirements essentially for medical school. So essentially for A-level, chemistry and biology, and pretty much everyone who applies will be doing chemistry and biology. And that third subject, some people want to do physics or maths as their third subject. Some people actually, physics and maths are not their strong suit and actually want to do something completely different, whether it's a language, whether it's psychology, whether it's art. And I've got many friends, doctors, who are absolutely the people who did those completely different third subjects. And actually what they were able to use that as an asset. So in an interview, demonstrate what the skills that they gained from doing art or language and why that was beneficial for them as a doctor. And actually doing a subject that they were basically knew that they could do well in and get that A star. Because actually doing a subject like Tanya was saying that you're not so strong at, so maths or physics, for example, and actually risking that you're not going to get the best grade that you can possibly get.
Amazing. Thanks for that, Manik. Now, I know that we're coming up to 8 o'clock right now, but what I'd love to do just now is do one final question, and we'll do it as a rapid round, as we love to do, to just squeeze in a last one. So the question that I've got for you, each panelist, and we'll go through every one of you to hear your insights, is what do you think is the most important thing that students can be doing right now during this pandemic to maximize their chances of success? Charlotte, I'll come to you first.
I would say utilizing their time well, which is a very kind of broad sweeping statement, but as Manik said, and as everyone said, we were looking in the interviews, because people have had limited ability to do work experience, A-level results, even all these UK CAT, BMAT testing, everything was changing. We were looking to see what people did with their time. And as I said before, we're not looking for people to give technically correct answers. The people are coming to be dentists. We don't expect them to be dentists when they're interviewing, but it's people that volunteered, that looked for challenges in their community, that thought about COVID, that worked on PPE, that made meals, that took care of their friends and family, that recognized the challenges around mental health, that worked in their local community, litter picking, all these kind of things that were really, really different, that then can relate that, as Manik said, to medicine and dentistry. We're not looking for direct correlation, but you know, if you sat there for the last 9 months or a year and you haven't done anything, or people that have done more research into dentistry and could tell me, I know that you wear enhanced PPE, I know that there's a fallow time, I know that the NHS regulations have changed, and telling me exactly what I do day to day because they'd spoken to people, they'd watched, they'd asked, they'd listened. YouTube, there's loads of stuff on YouTube, Instagram that's available to everybody. You don't have to be a health professional to log in to listen. So I would say people that have utilized their time well and effectively, and it can be anything. You've just got to be passionate about it, obviously constructive, and be learning from it and being able to say, maybe I learned this, maybe I learned that, and reflecting on it, I guess, is the most important thing.
Definitely. I mean, that's some great advice, Charlotte. Before we pop on to the next panelist, I just want to let you guys know that we have now launched the parent feedback poll for you guys. It's absolutely crucial for us that we find out how you found this evening. We're going to be holding more parents events, like I said, and we're going to be using directly that feedback. So please do fill that out, and we'll be able to refer that and bring you guys what you want. And with that segue, I'm going to hand over to Tanya. I can see you next on my screen.
I would say that as well as gaining new experiences, which is, you know, at the forefront of everyone's mind, so that work experience, or a lot of the times I think our sort of expectations are set by sort of medical students currently, or like doctors currently, who talk about the experiences that they got when they were applying. I would say to really, you know, again, sit down with your child and make a list of all of the things that they've done already. And this goes back to the point that Manik, the tip that Manik gave, and that's something that we emphasize in all of our programs, to sit down, make that list, and sort of, you know, have two columns to that list, where you basically list out all the experiences that you've done already, or your child has done already, how they apply to, you know, the attributes and the skills and the qualities of a good doctor or a dentist or a vet, and then think about, you know, honing in on those examples and sort of picking them apart and thinking about specific things that they've already done. And I think this has been a common theme, you know, as we've been talking, that it doesn't have to be anything medically even related, as long as you can show that, you know, you are sort of involved in the in your sort of local community, or, you know, you've thought a little bit about the impact that COVID is having on your family, your community, and sort of like nationally. Little examples like that, I feel like, if reflected on well and reflected on in a systematic way, can really really sort of even outweigh the sort of more formal work experiences that people used to get, or will get, and hopefully will get in the future.
Amazing. Thanks for that, Tanya. Becky, I'm going to come over to you, but we're going to keep these answers just a little bit shorter, so that we can ensure that we can finish soon. I realise we've run a little bit over. So Becky, over to you.
So yeah, I mean, I would really echo everything that everyone else has said. You know, we have a lot of time right now, and it's basically about utilising that time to, you know, develop your skills, figure out how those skills are applicable to your career. One other thing I would add as well is really try to use your connections, any connections that you have, anyone who you know, has experience within the career that you're looking to go into. You know, really talk to people, even if it's difficult to, say, get a work experience placement, for example. You know, just is so beneficial.
Thanks, Becky. And Manik, last but not least, over to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think the key thing I would say is be persistent. So I would suggest emailing everyone that you can. So your GP surgery, any local GP surgeries around, and just saying, look, we understand you can't do work experience, but can I maybe just talk to one of the doctors in an evening or a weekend for 20 minutes, half an hour, or one of the nursing staff or pharmacists or anyone who works in there, just to get an idea of what their job has been like, particularly in the last year, and be persistent. So if you don't get a reply, email again. Everyone is quite busy, and there are lots of times that I get emails and I see them and I think I will reply to this later and I forget. And actually it's okay to just email lots of people, email them again, send a reminder, be persistent, actually. And that's the key thing I would say.
Amazing. I mean, thank you so much, panelists, for those really key takeaways on that last question. I know that you guys had some really great insights there. And I just want to say as well, going on our audience, our parents that are watching live and have been submitting questions throughout the whole event, thank you so much for really helping us to have an immersive experience here. That is absolutely all that we're about here at InvestIN. And like I said before, should you wish to expand your child's insights into these areas, particularly on those other areas that we've spoken about. So skills is what we've been really focusing on here today, but absolutely crucial to our programs that I believe some of our panelists have been, mentioning a couple of times throughout their answers, is knowledge, experience, advantage, and network. And we really dive into those, particularly on our summer internships that are up to 10 days in length. And of course, you can personalize your experience. Perfect. So I just want to say, like I said, a final thank you and a good night to all that are watching. Have a wonderful evening.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.